What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're doing another tier list, and today's video is about the best boss fights in all of Wrath of the Lich King. I'm really looking forward to this video, as the last one that I did was the worst boss fights and everyone had a big kick out of that one. So this one's going to be even better, as we're talking about the best boss fights, every reason to love them, why they're great, what makes them great, and all of that. Now, quick disclaimer, we are doing a top 9 here instead of a top 10. Now, the reason for that is because when I was creating this video and prepping for it, I couldn't make 10 happen. There are 8 good boss fights that could have been the 10th slot here, that it just felt wrong to me to throw one of them in here. So instead, I'm doing the top 9, as I feel like all 9 of these fights really just kind of stand up above all the rest of the fights in the expansion. Without any further delay, let's jump right into it. First boss fight we're going to be talking about today is Algalon. Now, we are going in alphabetical order here, of course. Now, Algalon. Oh my god. What is there to say about Algalon? Seriously, this is my personal favorite fight in the entire expansion. There is so much going on between the lore and the setting that this boss fight is in. As I think the boss fight room is, yeah, it's a simple little circle, but it is the coolest boss room in the game. I love his voice lines. I love why we're killing him. I love all of the things that go into Algalon. I think he hits tanks really, really hard in punishing, which makes your tanks have to have good gear. You have to have good DR usage and good external usage. There's a lot of one-shot mechanics, which I think one-shot mechanics are great. A good boss fight has good one-shot mechanics, and there's a lot of stuff that you have to play right. Otherwise, your character is just going to fall over and die on Algalon. I think Algalon is, to me, an easy S tier. We put him in S tier. Now, obviously, I'm a little biased. I think he's my favorite. But I think he's just challenging enough that he's S tier. He's probably in the top 4 for the most difficult boss fights in the expansion. And I just think there's way too much flavor, way too much fun going on with Algalon. I literally look forward to every single Algalon pull. I never dread going to this boss. I'm always excited about it, even if it's my 20th time, 20th week doing it. I'm still going to have fun on Algalon because it's such a damn good boss fight. Now, compared to some of the other bosses that we're going to talk about in this list, he is actually a little more simple. But I think one of the cool things about Algalon is, unlike the other boss fights, there's a lot of pressure on Algalon. Considering the fact that you only have 1 hour to kill him from the moment that you activate him, that means you basically have a limited number of attempts to kill him. And so if you keep failing and failing and failing, you can't really progress Algalon. You have to nail him. So I think he balances that tightrope really, really well in terms of challenging fight, but not overly challenging, because if he was overly challenging, you only had 1 hour, then you would just be absolutely screwed. It's just perfect. It's so perfect. I love this. There are classes that, find their utility on Algalon. Think about Shadow Priest going Dispersion for big bangs. Like, they have a role. There are ranged DPS who need to turn on their microphones for once in their life and talk about when stars are dying. Healers are having to blast heals out of their minds. It's one of the most healing intensive fights in the game. It's just incredible. Even as an off tank, I'm having fun. Think about when you're taunt swapping on most bosses, you're just taunt swapping, and then you just kind of sit there AFK and don't do anything. On Algalon, when you're not tanking him, you have a job, and it's closing black holes. It's great. It is so good. There are so many things to love about this fight. It is absolutely one of my favorites of all time, and it's an easy S tier to me. All right, next up, we're going to be talking about Anub'arak. Now, this is the last boss in TOGC, and to me, I think he's one of the most underrated, most slept-on fights in the entire expansion. I think people just kind of tend to think that TOGC is this crap raid with not a whole lot going on. There's no trash fights. It's repetitive and it's really short. But I think Anub'arak kind of sneaks in there and surprises everyone with one of the best boss fights in the game. One of the things I love about Anub'arak is the healing assignments. Healing assignments in Anub'arak matter more than potentially any boss fight in the entire expansion. You can't just go in there and zug it. You can't just expect all your healers to hit their penetrating cold assignments and be done. You have to have good healing assignments and good communication, and make sure all your healers have the same raid frames and that everyone is going to be prepared when it comes to the last phase, the burn phase. I think this boss fight's nice and long. You also put faith into your other raid members on the down phases when he is pursuing someone. You have to trust that your paladins are going to do a hand of protection on you if you're being pursued. And so putting that kind of faith in other players is big. I just love this fight. I think it feels like a dance in a lot of ways. There's a couple fights that feel like a dance, and I think Anub'arak is definitely more of a dance fight where it feels like very rhythmic. Once you get used to Anub'arak, it's extremely easy. I love that there's this execute phase where everyone's health is really low, but you don't want to like spam heals, because the more heals that you spam, the more he's going to leech off of his leeching swarm. So just a really cool fight, and what a hilarious turn of events from this boss being the worst boss in any heroic dungeon ever to now becoming one of the best fights of the expansion, in my opinion. This is an A tier fight, although don't worry, I do think there are many other fights that are better than Anub'arak, but I think he's very much slept on and is in the top 9 of the expansion for sure. Now, next up is Blood Queen Lana'thel. Now, Blood Queen, you may not have expected to end up on this list, but let me defend Blood Queen Lana'thel for a second, because BQL is, in my opinion, the best patchwork fight in the expansion. The best. And what does a patchwork fight really mean? Well, it just means that there's tank mechanics, there's heals that need to be healed, and the boss basically stands still for DPS to just blast. Now, it's not like patchwork in Naxxramas that is like the, definitive patchwork fight. This one actually has mechanics going on. And I love those mechanics because they're mechanics that increase player power. And anytime that you're going to get a player power increase, that's always feels good, man. Always. And BQL does it great, where you want to manipulate how you're biting people, how you organize, how you prep your bites, and the order in which those happen. It's so smart. It's so clever. There's high tank damage. There's high ticking healing damage going out. There's also burst healing that goes out. There's also an air phase where melee lose some uptime, of course, LOL. But also, it's a big phase for healers to use raid CDs and to blast heals on the raid. It's great. Everyone is just pumping out of their minds because the BQL and rage timer is tight, and you have to nail it. It's a really good fight. It's, to me, like the best patchwork fight in the expansion, with simple mechanics that really don't punish you, but instead reward you for playing them well. I really love BQL, and to me this is an A tier fight, and it goes just behind Anub'arak in this list. Next up is Freya. We're going to be talking about Freya here. This is one of the keepers in Ulduar. Freya is great. She has so much going on, and specifically Freya hard mode, because Freya normal is insanely easy, but Freya hard mode is great. There are so many things happening in Freya hard mode that it is genuinely one of the most challenging fights to raid lead from. I've always struggled with communication on this fight because there's so many things to call that at a certain point you just kind of have to trust that your raid knows what to do for every mechanic. So you can pre-assign things like Aura Mastery on stomps, you can pre-assign Divine Sacs on stomps, you can pre-assign assignments for every single different type of ad phase, and all of these things. But once it comes down to it, this fight is chaotic. There's a ton of movement. There's a ton going on. There's a bunch of different types of ads that you have to kill, and you just need to be able to play on the fly, because I feel like every single Freya hard mode pull is different from each other. They are always different. The ad phases could come at different times, or the timings of beams and roots could come differently. Someone could end up in a bad spot. There could be a bad tree that spawns that you need to go kill. There are just a million different scenarios that could happen with Freya hard mode that you just have to be able to reactively play this fight and play it well in order to have success. So I absolutely love this fight. Big cleave fight, big AoE fight, and just a ton going on. Once you kill all 6 of her ad waves, you essentially get freedom, as you're just kind of doing the dance back and forth between the river with her, which is no problem. As long as you have enough people alive, you will easily burn through the second phase of this encounter and collect your loot. Freya is, to me, a high A tier fight. I can't quite put her in S tier because I have so many other fights that I want to put in S tier, but she is a great, phenomenal fight, and I absolutely love, love, love Freya, and I can't say enough good things about this fight. Next up is Hodir. Now, Hodir is another keeper from Ulduar. The thing about Hodir is there are 2 different versions of this fight. Now, a little history lesson. When Hodir was first released, when Ulduar was first released, the hard mode for Hodir was a 2-minute timer. You had to kill the boss in under 2 minutes in order to collect the hard mode loot. And that only existed, I want to say, for 1 week. After 1 week, he was quickly hotfixed because they thought 2 minutes was too hard, and I believe immediately after that, he was quickly put to 3 minutes. So the 2-minute Hodir fight only lasted 1 week back in original Wrath of the Lich King. And only 1 guild actually managed to kill him on hard mode that first week, I believe. And the only reason they were able to do it is because they were abusing some bug where they would essentially just have mages spell steal some buff. I believe it was from a trash pack in the Freya room, and they would use that buff, then get summoned to Hodir and have this extra damage buff that they would then use on the encounter to burn him down. Now, in reality, and come Wrath Classic, we don't know which version of Hodir we're going to get. Are we going to get the 2-minute version, or are we going to get the 3-minute version of Hodir? Because I will tell you this, many, many years after the original Wrath version of Ulduar dropped with the 2-minute Hodir, we have played many, many, many P servers of 335 clients, which again is a lot of player power with added balancing on talents and all these sorts of things. 2-minute Hodir is doable. It's 100% doable. I've done it countless times. And 2-minute Hodir is one of the best fights I've ever done. It is good progression. It requires you to have 2 healers and 1 tank. That means your healers have to have all specs, or they have to have ults that can blast. It requires good healing cooldown usage. It requires management of threat because people do so much damage, especially in a 2-minute Hodir. It requires a little bit of RNG, but you can kind of manipulate that and basically start consistently getting it down every week. But a little bit of RNG is relied upon on a 2-minute Hodir fight. And overall, it is just a big, big raid leader check. Can your raid leader make the call for you to push and hit the timer? Or does your raid leader call for stop DPS and wipe because you're not going to hit the 2-minute timer? It's so damn good that way. It's incredible. Now, the 3-minute Hodir fight, I'm telling you, those 60 seconds make all the difference. Because a 3-minute Hodir fight, you can easily one-shot that every single week. You can 5 heal it. You can have bad RNG and still kill it. You can easily mow through 3-minute Hodir week 1. No issues. You can pug 3-minute Hodir. And so, if we're talking about 3-minute Hodir, I mean, yeah, it's more of like a B on the tier list to me. But 2-minute Hodir is A, and it goes here, potentially even ahead of Freya. Yeah, 2-minute Hodir is ahead of Freya. It is one of the best fights in the game. Everyone just goes full Super Saiyan mode, and it is absolutely bananas. I absolutely love Hodir. It belongs in this list. It deserves a spot in this list, and I'm only referring to the 2-minute Hodir fight in this example. All right, next up, Lich King. Specifically, Light of Dawn. And specifically, 0% Light of Dawn. Look, let's face it. As to no one's surprise, this is an easy S tier. In fact, it goes above Algalon here. Lich King is the fight of the expansion. He's a bad guy. He's the ultimate villain here. All the lore and everything has led up to this encounter with the Lich King. And it's incredible. It works. It pays off. It's one of the best fights that Blizzard has ever created. Everything from the down to the role play that happens, down to the floor being destroyed and then recreated again, down to the upside down phases where you go into the sword room, from the Valks that pick people up and want to drop them off the edge. This fight has everything you could possibly want. It's incredible. It's long, but not too long. It's super challenging, and it is the most rewarding last boss of an expansion I've ever played. This fight literally brings everything to the table. The only thing that the Lich King fight is potentially missing is a power increase for players, as I really love power increases. But this fight literally brings all of it. The tank damage is really high, requires great cooldown usage on your tanks and tank swaps, and until you get to the point that you can solo tank it, of course. This, I can't say enough about Lich King. It's incredible. It's a fight worth waiting for. It is a fight worth getting to the last phase of the expansion just to do it. It is that fun, it's that challenging, it is that rewarding, and it is truly the most sought after achievement in terms of a Realm First race is the Light of Dawn race. It is one of the best races of all time. Next up, we're going to be talking about Firefighter. Now, Mimiron Firefighter is one of the most chaotic looking fights you could ever witness if you don't know what's going on. It looks like absolute insanity. It looks like this is going to be the most challenging fight my guild will ever do. But I promise you, Mimiron is actually much more manageable than you might think. He has a lot of mechanics, a lot of different phases, and it's a really long fight with a lot of one-shots. I love that. Good fights have punishing mechanics like proximity mines, laser barrage, his Nova. There's so much happening here that you have to pay attention to, otherwise you're just going to die. And that is great. It's a ton of personal responsibility, and without enough good players in the raid, you won't be able to do Firefighter. It genuinely requires a lot of people to just play their class to the best of their ability, especially in the last phase. In the last phase, all of the mechanics that you've seen from phase 1 through 3 get brought back to the table, and it's a burn phase, a 3-target burn phase. A 3-target burn phase is incredible, first of all. Thank you, Blizzard, for that alone. Good cleave, fight, execute is much needed more often. Another great thing is that with all these mechanics happening, it's genuinely up to you to survive just so you can do the most amount of damage possible. Greeting left, right, and center is not going to help you kill this fight, as the more you greed in the last phase, the more likely you are to die, and you can't do damage if you're dead. The Enraged Timer is great. There's so much happening. There's so many reasons why people could die. There's good RNG, there's bad RNG. There's tons of flames everywhere in the end, and it's just chaos. And it's one of the most rewarding fights to kill on progression in the entire expansion. Mimiron is widely regarded as one of the best fights Blizzard has ever made, and Firefighter to me is an easy S tier. Personally below Algalon, as I love Algalon, although many of you watching this video might put Firefighter above Lich King. That's how good this fight is. Next up, we're going to be talking about Professor Putricide. Now, this fight is crazy. To me, it's the second best fight in all of ICC. And I think a lot of people would agree with that, as Professor Putricide, specifically on Heroic, is the gatekeeper to Lich King. It's not Sindragosa, it's PP. And PP is a great fight. The one-shot mechanics on PP aren't always just one-shot mechanics that kill you, but they're one-shot mechanics that could potentially wipe your entire raid. So one person making one mistake causes an entire wipe. There's good damage here. Really good damage. Lots of movement. Good movement though, where you can optimize to stand still and turret, but still you have to move often. There's lots of target swapping. There's lots of different things you need to look for. You are literally spinning your camera at 180 degrees constantly just to make sure that you're not missing anything that's happening. Between the push where you need to pop Lust and kill both oozes at the same time, and the execute phase, this fight is to me an easy A tier, and I'd put it right here just above Freya. I love that in heroic PP you have your off tank have multiple duties on this fight where he controls the A bomb, but also in the last phase you have to split and do tank swaps. I love that there are a ton of reasons why people could die in the last phase, and if anyone were to die in the last phase, that could also mean a wipe. It's everything. This fight has literally everything. It's so good. It's so incredible. It's so intense with such a great dance to it that heroic PP is easily one of the best fights in the expansion and one of the best gatekeepers to Lich King. Hats off to Blizzard on heroic PP, and I just wish there were more fights like it. Now, the last fight we are going to talk about is Yogg-Saron, specifically Yogg-Zero. Now, Yogg has a lot. Truthfully, if I were to explain to you how to do Yogg 1, which is the regular hard mode, it would take a 15-minute long video potentially. There is so much to explain. However, a lot of that is really simple stuff. They're things that aren't really the biggest deal in the world. You don't necessarily have to know everything that goes into Yogg, but there's a lot. And because there's a lot that you could die to. There's a lot of reasons why you could lose sanity. A million reasons why you could lose sanity. And losing sanity on this fight, specifically in Yogg-Zero, is one of the worst things you could do, because on Yogg-Zero, the most important thing in this fight is, again, the execute phase. Getting through phase 1 is a bit of a challenge, but definitely manageable. Phase 2 is a DPS check to see if you can push the brain in 3 brain rooms. And then the last phase is just keeping your sanity and doing as much damage to the boss as possible. The ads can be taken care of thanks to good kiting and to moving them out when you need to. But truthfully, it's keeping your sanity and doing boss damage, as much boss damage as humanly possible. So if you don't have sanity, you're basically dead. You're not really useful if you don't have your sanity. You have to be able to face the boss despite his gaze and pump, and just absolutely pump. Also, of all the fights mentioned here so far, Yogg is the only one that you actually want to drop healers for. Of course, besides Hodir. Those 2 fights are the only ones. For a typical Yogg-Zero attempt, you're usually going to 2 heal it. 1 Disc Priest, 1 Holy Paladin. Although, of course, you could take 3 healers, or maybe even take just 1 healer. But typically, you're going to take 2 for Yogg-Zero, which is awesome. I genuinely love that. It's less so of a class stack meta, and more so of a class diversity meta, where your healers need to have the ability to swap to a DPS spec, or swap to an alt that does good damage. Being able to do that, it makes a massive difference in your roster for this fight. To me, Yogg-Zero is an easy S tier. It goes up at the top. One of the most challenging fights in the game, with a great title reward at the end with Death's Demise for round first. It's a phenomenal fight. A very rewarding, a very challenging, and a very prestigious kill. On top of that, if you are ever able to kill Yogg-Zero with your guild, you will be rewarded with one of the most highly sought after mounts in the game, with Mimiron's head. And so best of luck out to you there if you want them out. But that's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. That concludes this tier list. I had a ton of fun making this one, a ton of fun prepping it, and yeah, as you can see, all these fights are incredible. They're all S or A tier. I couldn't put anything in B or C. If it belonged in B and C, I couldn't put it on the video. And to me, this comes down to the order as well. From left to right, these are the top 4 fights, and then these are the last. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends. Please give me a comment down below if you would change anything in this order, or if you have any other fights that you would add to it that you think belong as that 10th spot. Let me know. And subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. Anyway, that's it for this one. I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.